have a few of them in front of me because they all drive from Pointless. This for one in Cleveland. I had Jake the Snake on a podcast called Flip the Script, and he said in his opinion, Brett and Sean were the worst world champions, and they couldn't put asses in the seats, and they fought over Sonny's pussy. What's your take on that? Brett and Sean as champions, and is there any truth to what Jake said? So that's one of the questions. Let me just read a couple of these here so you get the general idea. This one was sent in cornette@gmail.com from Thaddeus Armstrong in Washington, D.C. Jake the Snake recently appeared on Flip the Script and made claims that the Montreal Screwjob was essentially based around the fact that both guys were fighting over the pussy, talking about Sonny, and didn't want to put the other over. Now, I thought I'd heard everything till now and was wondering if you had any knowledge of this. During the same interview, he claimed Bret Hart was boring and never had the it factor, and that Sean had the it factor, I guess, though he did put him over as a great wrestler, and that both were never credible as champions, based on the believability, given that the example of one of them against Andre the Giant.
Good fucking God.
As a guy who started watching during the Austin Rock era, I at least had a chance to witness Shawn Michaels, but only heard Bret stories and accepted him as great. So my question is, how over was Bret? And then one last one here, Jim. Jake Roberts in an interview was asked who the worst world champions were. To my surprise, he answered Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart, and went as far as to say that Bret was a good mechanic at best, but was a low card tag team guy, and that's what he should have always been. What are your thoughts? Do you agree, disagree? So obviously, Jake, a couple things there about where Bret and Shawn rank as champions, if they were good enough to be champions, and was Montreal all about them fighting over Sonny's pussy?
Good God. Well, one thing is, I understand Jake not liking Shawn because that would be a large club he'd be a part of, but I wonder where the heat with Bret comes from. Because when you say shit like that, obviously he's mad at both of them. I mean, we know what the story is. Shawn was the best performer as far as performing of the fucking 90s. He was just a prick to deal with, and a complete asshole, and always pilled up or having a problem. He was selfish and didn't want to put anybody over except for the members of his own little treehouse club called the Clique. Bret was a better technical worker than Shawn, but not as flamboyant with all the moves, but he liked it that way, but it fit his personality because he was more serious. But he was always serious about the wrestling business, in some cases too serious about himself, but always serious about the wrestling business. And Bret, the thought can be that Shawn and Bret didn't draw the crowds in the 90s that Hogan did in the 80s because wrestling was hot in the 80s, which through no fault of wrestling's own, bad management from TBS and Vince, the steroid trial, and just cracking up there the first half of the 90s, shit was down. But Jake didn't say that Diesel, Kevin Nash, was the worst WWF champion of all time, because he really was, in terms of box office, the worst drawing WWF champion of all time, and he had the worst matches. And Jake himself saw the Ultimate Warrior. He was there for Warrior, and Warrior may have drawn money, but he was abysmal in every facet of fucking wrestling. So, and let's be honest again, neither Shawn nor Bret could do a promo like Jake in his day, and Jake psychologically was equal to Bret as a worker and probably ahead of Shawn psychology-wise, because Jake's shit would make more sense, but as an athlete and an in-ring performer, both Shawn and Bret in their sleep could have better athletic matches than Jake. And Jake also never got a run with the belt, not because he wasn't over at the time, but probably mostly because, besides the fact that his heyday came under Hogan and they weren't going to take the belt off of Hogan, he may be mad because he may say they trusted fucking Shawn Michaels with his goddamn belt and they didn't fucking trust me with it. How bad was I?
I watched the interview. Part of his complaint seems to be, or I don't know if complaint's the right word, that he seems to be of the mindset you have to be a big guy, that wrestlers, and especially star wrestlers, should be bigger than Shawn and Bret were. Well,
Bret could have kicked the shit out of Jake at probably any point in his fucking life unless Jake got his hands on an equalizer. So that doesn't hold water. And I agree to an extent about size. I mean, if you look at Marco Studded growth, that's just ridiculous. You have to look like an athlete, and you have to look like you can whip somebody. And let's face it, unfortunately, for himself, Shawn Michaels couldn't whip anybody in a real fight, as has been proven by every single fight he's ever gotten into with anybody in the business. But at least he was 6 feet tall, and he was about fucking 2, or you could announce him at 215 or 220. It was acceptable, especially given the challengers or the opponents that he had at the time. Jake was never that physically fucking impressive. He's big because he got his dad's fucking height. So it's if I could even say that Shawn Michaels was a great worker in his way all around, acknowledging that he was still a fucking prick, then certainly Jake can, unless he's just mad. When you say something like that, I'd love to say Shawn Michaels was the shits, but I can't because everybody would know I was a goof if I said that. I'd be lying. And Bret was fucking very fucking good. Very fucking good. Better in the ring than Jake. Maybe not getting the most out of the least, but Jake also had help from a 15-foot fucking snake. So it's got to be personal because you would not say that otherwise. Look at the other people that have had that belt since then. For fuck's sake. The Miz was a fucking champion.
That's a good point.
You're going to knock Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels? They put the belt on Miz.
Jake was on the creative team in '96. Did he ever raise any concerns that you remember about Shawn Michaels being the champion?
No, well, only the concerns that we all raised every time that Shawn was doing something stupid, but he was, how long was he on it? Did it last 4 months? Jake was just there to come to some meetings, get a fucking check. And I mean, he could, toss a few ideas in from left field at one time or another in the meeting, but he never came with any paperwork. He never did any homework. But no, he wasn't going to tell Vince, hey, the guy you decided to put the belt on, we got to take the belt off of him because he's not big enough. Even if he felt like that horse had left the barn, he was smarter than to say that. But that's personal to me. It has to be. And why group Bret in that? And yes, they were fighting over Sonny's pussy, but they fought over everything else too. That wasn't the bone of contention as to why Bret wouldn't put Shawn over. That was the bone of contention as to why that Bret fucking took Shawn down and was going to beat the fuck out of him because he had made that accusation on TV before Bret had split up with his wife yet. But that was just, no, it wasn't over Sonny is why the Montreal happened. That's ridiculous. And Jake knows that, but he's just saying shit to be on a podcast.
What's up, guys? Dimitri Vegas here. My brand new track, 2 Times, together with Steve Aoki, is available now on TikTok, and I can't wait to see all the amazing creations you guys are gonna come up with.
All happened. That's ridiculous. And Jake knows that, but he's just saying shit to be on a podcast.
Well, our next question, Jim, was sent in the corny drive-thru at gmail.com.
Oh, you're laughing because I got gas now?
The way you said it humored me. Yes. This was sent in by Stephen in Kildare, Ireland. On your most recent episode of The Experience, you mentioned that Vince McMahon, in his quest to kill the business twice over and move it away from wrestling, that he had accidentally created many Vince-isms. You've already touched on some of these before, such as medical facility and don't say belt and the like. Could you deep dive into that encyclopedia in that head of yours to cover as many of the Vince-isms and what they are / mean as you possibly can?
Oh God. Well, everybody knows belt. You can't say belt, and wrestling has been banned and wrestler for a while. One time I was actually doing commentary on one of the syndicated shows. We're doing the voiceover commentary of pre-taped matches at the studio in Stamford. And it was, I remember it was Taka Michinoku, and JR and I were calling the match, and I said something to the effect of, well, Taka Michinoku better concentrate on doing something or he's not going to win this wrestling match. And JR started to say something, and Jennifer Good, the producer, said, stop. What? Can't say that. What did we say? Can't say wrestling. I said, what? I didn't even realize what I'd said. I said, wait a minute. I can't say he's got better concentrate on winning this wrestling match. No. God damn it. And I hated to stop down because JR and I, for months in a row, would do 2 hours of television voiceovers every, I believe it was Thursday morning. We'd do superstars for this country, and then we'd do international heat. And everybody else that did those, they would stop down all the time and blah, 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 blah. And it'd take like 4 hours to do 2 one-hour shows, which are 45 minutes apiece without commercials. Well, JR and I did not like to stop down. We liked to do it like it was live. So we would see, and we would end up doing 2 one-hour shows in an hour and 45 minutes with a 15-minute break to re-rack tape in between. So I'm like, oh, okay. Well, I wasn't going to say sports entertainment, so I changed it to, better to win this contest or just to win this match or whatever. But it was little shit like that back when I was there. But now they actually have an entire handbook of phrases that you cannot use. And it's been out on the internet, and you can look it up. But like that's how WWE Universe came about. Didn't want to call them fans. Can't say the fans. Now you can't say the referees' names, I'm told. You're not allowed to identify the referees. They are there on your screen, but they don't exist in real life because they don't have names. It just sometimes he would get boiling mad. I would understand this. This is something I would pick apart in a wrestling training class. But Vince would hate it when a guy would be backed up into the corner and another guy would choke him around the neck, and the guy or be punching him in the face, and the guy's hands would be on the top rope. Right? You see a guy gets backed in the corner, he grabs it, it's nature, you grab the top rope on either side, but while you're being choked or punched in the face, Vince believed, and this is true, if it was real, you'd either try to be covering up your face or prying the fucking hands away. And that's true. And I would call that to everybody's attention in wrestling classes. But he would go on about it in meetings for fucking 5 or 10 minutes. Look at this fucking guy. You know, the fucking blah, blah, blah. Just certain things get under his skin, and over a period of time, they have now compiled all of those things, and so they give the announcers all these words. You've seen them. I can't even remember what else they've banned now or suggested recommended verbiage for, but it's a whole goddamn list. And it's all about trying to remove phrases and terms that he thinks are wrestling, and he's done a pretty good job of removing all of the wrestling out of his wrestling program. But it's strap was worse than belt. He hated the word, drop the strap. That was a phrase in the industry. If you're going to switch your belt, Brian is going to beat Jim for the Southeastern title. You go, well, I'm going to drop the strap to you. Oh, he hated that. And it just, it's things that in his mind make his program more associated with professional wrestling. Imagine that. And I was there that time in the meeting. There was Vince. There was Shane. This was before Stephanie. Shane's older, so Shane was around the office before Stephanie was, after he got out of school.